Hi there. Welcome to Tech Talk Weekly. I'm Bob from Creation Station. Today, we're going to give you a question about what time is it on the moon? If you haven't been here before, this is our weekly show where we talk about three or four interesting tech topics in the news. Send John your way in about 20 minutes. Today, I have Michael Bryant with me from Community Engagement. How you doing, Michael?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Life is great. Michael and I are almost cubicle mates. We have what? A whole 6 inches in between the two places,
Yeah,
I think. So tell
exactly.
everybody what you actually do, Michael, for anybody who hasn't seen you on the show before.
Okay, thank you, Bob. I oversee all of the adult programs in the entire library system. And so I work with each of our libraries to bring adult programs such as our technology classes, financial literacy, our NEA Big Read program. I know we're going to talk about that a little bit later. And so I get a chance to work with all of the wonderful staff across the system. I get a chance to reach out with our potential partners, like some of the financial literacy organizations and things of that nature. So it gives me a great variety.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And all the stuff that all the crazy stuff. Wait till you see all the things that are coming up here, folks. Let's get into this because there's some interesting stories today. The first one is, Michael, who do you think is the biggest predator up there in the North Pole? I know everybody would just instinctively say polar bears.
Yeah, of course, if you would ask me that question before I took a look at the article, I probably would have said polar bear as well, or maybe like a whale or something. But
Yeah.
yeah, it looks like it's not the polar bear.
Isn't it crazy? So
Yeah.
what happens and what this is really a function of, and I put a quick little chart up here of why it's not, is that there's a fairly small number of actual polar bears, and they eat whales and they eat seals and everything, but there's sea stars and other
Hmm.
starfish and everything like that down there at the bottom that are eating a tremendous amount of plankton and all sorts of other stuff, including, here's a picture to get you going, of all the starfish swallowing up a sea lion.
Hmm.
So your sea lion dies of natural causes or for whatever, sinks to the bottom, and then suddenly is just swallowed up. So I think that is really I thought this was so interesting to go in and just, get that comparison about what it's all about how many there are, not so much about how big and ferocious you are,
Hmm.
you know, and why we have to watch out for all these other little things that are going around.
Exactly. Yeah, one of the things I thought was interesting. I just never really thought about just the volume that the sea stars were consuming.
Yeah.
Because of course, as you mentioned, the polar bears, but their hunting is much larger per se. But then you have so many sea stars and the things that they're eating, and because there's so many more of them,
Yeah.
the total volume ends up being more than what the polar bears are
Yeah.
consuming.
It was just crazy, and it goes through. It's a fungal, and as always, we'll have all the links in the show notes for you. It's just a fun little chart here for this. And then our other idea here was gardening.
Hmm.
Gardening's a pretty safe topic. Gardening, you'd think, right? I mean, you go out there, you have a garden because you want to grow healthy vegetables, and that's going to make you healthier. Turns out, not quite so much. It's not the biggest benefit to gardening for you out there is not the actual food itself, but it's the act of gardening.
Hmm.
They went through and found out that there were, of all the different studies, 37 different community gardens that they did these studies at. The act of gardening, being outside, doing the gardening and everything, brought better health benefits than the actual just eating healthier from eating food out of your own garden.
Hmm. Yeah, one of the things I looked at was looking at the fact that people who are gardening, they ended up exerting more physical activity.
Yeah.
And so that had a lot to do with their fitness level, reducing their stress. And so, as you mentioned, there are so many other benefits to gardening besides the fact of just consuming the food.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just craziness. Um, let me I'm hearing we did get a comment in the chat about the background noise over there. And yes, and understand that from out there. We do get that kind of noise sometimes because all of our people that we're working with here are all in working areas of the library sometimes. And that's part of the interesting part about this.
And
Um,
that's probably on my end over here, but I have a
yeah.
few workers, coworkers around me, and so I'll try to mute and hop in and out.
Yeah.
So
Well, and also it's not you, Michael, it's the people. I can hear her voice behind you. I know exactly who that is. I'll tease her about it later. Um, our next story was something that seems really simple. What time is it on the moon?
this is a topic, Bob, I never even thought about before until I read this article. What is the time on the moon? I never even thought about it before. So it was some interesting things that we talked about. Like
What
how
did you
the
used to think? What did you used to think about that?
I never thought about it before. It was never something I could even consider. And then just reading some of the article where it talked about the clocks, how they move different depending on the gravitational pull. And so that plays a big to do as to what time it would be on the moon and how they would actually coordinate the time with
Yeah.
our time on Earth.
Yeah, there's a 6 o'clock looking for, I can't find it real fast. I'll grab it. There's a book. It's either 6 clocks or 12 clocks that have changed the world. That fit right into what you were just saying there, Michael. And one of the ideas behind this and why it doesn't always occur to people that you have to think about how you're going to organize this. Because I asked this of a couple people. This is one of the stories that got emailed to us. So thank you out there for sending these in. And they were like, "Well, but it's got to be easy." And I was like, "No. Are you just going to pick Cape Canaveral? Are you going to pick Houston? Are you going to pick Greenwich Mean Time? What are we using just as a base? And then don't forget, you've got stuff orbiting the moon as the moon is orbiting the Earth, and you've got all these different things. And oh, by the way, we're trying to go back to the moon, which is one of the reasons this came up. And so now you're going to have a satellite network up there over the moon, and you're going to have to. So one of the first things they're going to be establishing is an actual communications tower. The first lander that goes there is going to act as a communications tower so that they can synchronize and set up moon standard time. I don't know. What do you think they're going to call it? That's kind of the interesting one for me is what are they actually going to be calling this? Armstrong Standard Time has a ring to it.
Yeah, yeah. I know. I think in the article it talked a lot about how they're doing all this research, and a lot of it is going to lead up into people actually living on the moon.
Yeah.
And that's going to be such a big to do that they have to make those decisions. And then it also talked about having the different time zones. Like, how would you set up the
Yeah.
time zones on the moon as well?
Yeah. It's going to be really interesting. It's going to be a lot of fun. And also one of these ideas, it's a small little idea, but it has to change. Is one of the current policies for space is you don't launch nuclear things in space. They get special permission to put satellites, long-term satellites out, like Voyager and things that have small nuclear powered engines. Cassini that went by Saturn. But yeah, we're gonna have to launch not a lot of stuff, not like nuclear weapon type stuff, but we're gonna have to put some decent, amount of energy up there to keep these things running for a long time. And solar panels don't really work on the moon there's a whole dark side of the moon thing going on. So just to let you know. Then we have another story. Well, we have 3 more stories for you because nobody can stop talking about ChatGPT. So, couple of quick, let me give you the 3 headlines, and I want to get your take on this, Michael. So Google is, all afraid, all shook up about this idea of OpenAI putting out ChatGPT and all these other types of things. And what's that going to do to their company? It was found out that CNET was publishing dozens and dozens of articles over the course of several months that were fully written by ChatGPT and other AI type things without human writers and such. 77 stories altogether. And then finally, what happens if you're using a chatbot for mental health care? So these 3 stories, all the key thing that seems to be is one, ChatGPT or some kind of AI chat, but it's also about, is it different than doing it as a human? And this is one of those things where I believe it's just in the zeitgeist right now. Everybody's talking about it. Everybody gets worked up about this, and some people are going too fast. Some people are just reacting without thinking about it. I personally noticed right here in the CNET one, they said that 41 of the 77 stories had to have some kind of correction. They don't bother to mention how many of their other stories that a human editor or a human writer did that an editor had to go in and make a correction. Go, Michael. Tell me.
Yeah, well, as far as the correction part, makes me think about electric cars. How a certain number of electric cars every year catch on fire, but then also gasoline cars catch on fire as well.
Like 100%, whatever, hundreds of cars of gasoline cars versus one electric car. Yeah.
Yeah. So, as you mentioned, it would be nice to kind of see the statistics on both ends. But yeah, when I was looking at the chat GPT, and I was thinking to myself, I'm like, wow, Google was spooked by someone? Really? Wow, that was interesting. And as I was reading the article, one of the things I thought about is, I definitely want to experience this chat GPT to kind of see what the fuss is about it and everything, to kind of get an idea. And I think that seeing the conversation piece of the chat GPT, I want to experience that to see how the AI is just able to engage the person as the person can ask a question and see how natural the process is.
It's super natural with how you just type. And it's much better than interacting with most chatbots out there. If you're doing customer service stuff out on a website and you're like, oh, I don't want to talk to this thing, it's just got pre-programmed answers. It's much more natural flowing. It's much more relaxed. You can ask it questions. It will give you back answers. Depending upon how complicated you get is how much they will give you back. The stories that it was writing were, for the most part, just low quality, like not checking that fact is backed up by other people. It's just like, here, one person threw out this one fact and they took that and ran with it instead of going through and verifying with other sources. And plus, because it creates it on its own, I like this thing. They're calling it hallucinations. That the AI has hallucinations and says the wrong thing. And I'm like, that's not what we call it when a human says that.
Well, I on the mental health article, it definitely brings up so many issues as far as privacy and patient care. So it's just interesting how all of those things are going to shake out and settle as these things become more and more of a standard. as people continue to seek these services. Because I think one of the things it talked about in the article as well is that there was not nearly enough mental health professionals
Right.
to help with the number of people that needs the assistance, and so that's kind of driving the need for this automated system such as ChatGPT.
Yeah. And that's one of those things where if you're dealing with a human therapist and you're going back and forth, that's one it can you can only do one person at a time. If you are a human and you're trying to interact with your patient, it's one-on-one. You're dealing with one person outside of group setting, obviously. Um, Here, if you can figure out how to do this ethically, this is a really good resource for being able to go back and forth and talk to people in that. There are several text message only versions of this that have been in existence for years. And it's something where you could just you're in bed at 3 o'clock in the morning and you can just text this number and you'll get a text response back. And they're all pre-approved texts back by someone. Some therapist has said, yes, this is an okay message to send to people when they're asking these sorts of things, different than ChatGPT is. We're using ChatGPT, by the way, as just the generic AI text in the context of this conversation. There are many AI chatbots out there, which is going back to the original. Yeah, go, Michael.
Well, that was going. I think we kind of touched on it as well, but the the data. I always wonder about the data that's being collected, because I would imagine something like this could be offered, online, and so people can seek this, say for example, mental health therapy,
Yeah.
and now they're able to go to some of these automated systems,
Yeah.
and they're able to get counseling and things of that nature. And I just wonder, how much of their information are they giving up by clicking the user agreement saying, yes, I agree to use this service, and
Yeah.
how vulnerable is the data once it's inside this housing of wherever it's going
Hmm.
to be stored.
Yeah. There was an article that came out this afternoon from Amazon that their HR people said, "Hey, stop using this," because they're asking people were experimenting with it with a version of the OpenAI. They were asking it the questions that interviewers were asking, and now those questions are now built into the database for OpenAI and their ChatGPT. So now other people who go in and ask, well, if they ask me this, they're gonna know what kind of
Uh,
answers
Bob, I
Amazon
don't know if
wanted.
you others can hear you, but I can't hear you anymore.
Huh. Okay. I'm showing that I'm still going up there, but I'm gonna mute and unmute. There we go. Hopefully that worked for you now. No? Okay. Um, we're gonna continue on and hope that this is all going well, and we're gonna get to that. Let's go straight to Michael's go.
All right, looks like we're having a little technical difficulty. So what we'll do is, I think Bob just placed it on the screen. We'll kind of get ready to close out. I would love to invite you to one of our upcoming programs. The Broward County Library has an opportunity to implement the NEA Big Read program. And we have a live conversation with award winning author Patricia Engel. You should see it on your screen right now. Maybe we can make sure that they can get access to that registration page, Bob. It's going to be at our Southwest Regional Library in Pembroke Pines. All of the details are on your screen. You'll get a chance to hear Patricia Engel talk about her writing process, her award-winning book. She has a new book coming out as well. Also, people who attend in person will have a chance to win a projector that will be raffled off at the location. And that event is this Saturday, January 28th, and it starts at noon, 12 p.m. Eastern. Thank you.
It's gonna be awesome. It's gonna be a really good event. If you still can't hear me, Michael, I am sorry. We're going to find out. I was hearing you just fine. So hopefully everything worked out great. I'm going to wrap it all up for us. If there is a library or librarian you'd like to see featured on the show, reach out to us at creationstation@broward.org, and we'll see everybody next week. Have a great weekend, everyone.